If there's one thing that leaders have in common, it's that you live under a certain amount of pressure at any given moment. I've talked to a lot of leaders over the course of my life, and of course, in the last 3 to 5 years, have been focused on working with leaders. I often hear that pressure that leaders live under turn to stress, turn to overwhelm. And instead of stress being a stage in a season, it becomes a state of being, a way of living. When maybe we could look at the fact that pressure comes with the territory, but what we do with the pressure is whether it will determine if it turns into stress. What we do with the stress will determine the health of ourselves and the health of the people that we're leading. I want to talk today about the sources of your stress, because the strategy to meet the demand of the stress should match the source. We want to uncover the source, the root that's producing the rotten fruit, the stress. We want to identify where the pressure came from and how we turned it to stress in order to have the appropriate strategy to manage the stress. Because what I want to tell you is that managing stress with deep breathing, with addressing your nervous system, with exercise, with yoga, with rest, all of that is important. But there are some key pieces that we might be leaving out by not identifying the source, the true source of your stress. Let's dive in for a little reflection here. Let's get really practical, and I'm going to keep this short because I want you to take time and have the time to reflect on this. So start with this. Grab a piece of paper. It can be any paper, and just jot down everything that you're feeling stressed about, both in your personal life and your professional life. List all of the sources of stress. Once you're done with that, come back to the video. Now, having that list in front of you, I want you to go one by one and look at that stress and ask yourself this question: what is making me feel stress about this area? Pause the video and take a second to answer that question. Your next question is the pressure that I'm putting on myself in this area one that I am called to carry? That's the first one. And what I mean by called to carry is, did you put that pressure on yourself? Did God ask you to carry this thing? Is this part of your roles in life? Or did you take this on yourself? That would be the second question. The third question, after you've answered those first two, is what am I feeling really that's causing the stress? I'm going to give you a list of some things, and I'm going to list them slowly. Take a second to jot them down. Almost next to your list would be good, because you could draw lines from the list over to the sources of stress that you're feeling to get to the root. This list is often the root of stress that moves from just being a stage or a season to a state of living. These are the reasons that we will see crop up, and that I see crop up in leaders as a pattern. And what I want to say is your answers to those questions and the way that you line up the root to the fruit of stress, that's going to be the source that needs to be addressed. Sometimes we think that it's this external problem solving, that if I delegate more to more people, or if I set up a system, or if I hire someone else, or if I do something, it feels proactive. And sometimes it is, because we identify that the source is a lack of systems, or the source is a lack of hands, right? But other times the source is something a little bit more personal. Here's your list. Do you feel stress in this area because you feel like you have a lack of control? You can't control the outcome. You can't control the other people and how they're reacting. You've tried really hard and put things in place and it's still not working the way that you want. Your plans are failing, both plans A, B, and C, and you feel a lack of control. Do you feel stressed because you have a lack of clarity or certainty? You don't know what the next step is. You don't know where this is all going. You don't have the answer. You are uncertain about the direction and the outcome of where you're at. And that lack of clarity and uncertainty is causing you stress. Is it coming from a lack of success, leaving you with feelings of failure? Do you feel like you're failing in a certain role? Do you feel like you're failing as a leader? Do you feel like you're failing your people, your family, your friends, the people you lead? Are you just failing as a human? Is that how you feel? That lack of success? Is that what's producing stress in a certain area? How about lack of flexibility? Do you feel like you are rigid in a certain thing, going a certain way and having a certain outcome, and you want it to be that way, and because you're not willing to flex, that's causing you stress? So lack of flexibility or adaptability. How about a lack of humility? Have people been trying to talk to you about this area? Have you been given some sound counsel? Have you been given some wise advice? And you keep thinking you're different. That doesn't apply to you. No, this is more important. My role is really important in this. Could it be that you are lacking humility and then because of the pride, you are carrying stress? How about a lack of vision? You don't see how what you're doing or this area, how it ties into anything with significance or anything, bigger or moving forward, a why. You don't see how it ties to your values and priorities. A lack of vision, maybe that's causing stress. Maybe it's a lack of grace and empathy. Maybe there are people and relationships causing stress. And could it be that you're lacking grace and lacking empathy, maybe lacking compassion for those people? What about lack of faith? Are you holding on and wrestling and grappling and manipulating and forcing something to happen? And you think that holding on is being consistent and committed and persistent, but really you're holding on, white knuckling it, because you're afraid of letting go. So you're not holding on out of faith, you're holding on out of fear. And I call that the difference between holding fast to something, which is faithfulness, and holding tight to something, which is the white knuckle fear. Could it be that you're holding on because of a lack of faith? Could it be that you have a lack of growth personally? You're doing it the way that you've always done it. You see it the way that you've always seen it. And you're not allowing new ways, new perspective, and change to be adopted. I can come up with this list because one, I think I've been guilty of every single one of these things on this list, which has produced stress for me. And two, because I think every leader I've met has one or more of these things show up as a repeated pattern, producing stress. Leaders, I want to argue with you that stress is not just part of the game. It's not just something you have to accept as a burden of being a leader. I think you will have pressure. That is definitely part of the burden of being a leader. But what you do with that pressure will determine the amount of stress you're living under. And how you handle and see the stress and their sources and what you do about their sources will determine the health of you as a person and the people that you lead. So I want to say to you, are you just accepting stress as a state, which is really robbing you of your true potential as a leader, robbing you of flourishing, robbing you and the people you lead of health? Are you just accepting it because it feels important to you to be under pressure and stressed all the time? I know that's kind of a call out and it may seem really rude and lacking empathy. I have full empathy because I've been that person. Remember, I said I was guilty of everything on that list, so I can speak it and call it out because I was it and I recognize the pattern when it comes up. So do you just think you're living this really important life and it just comes with the territory, and so that's why you just live in this state of stress? I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to a new set of beliefs. I want to challenge you to a new way of seeing your role as a leader. I want to challenge you to think differently about pressure and about the mantle of leadership that you carry. This is a start.